For the past 62 years, no facility has hosted more Boston University athletic events than Nickerson Field. Since the university purchased the facility from the Boston Braves, it has served as the home for several varsity teams, including Terrier soccer, lacrosse, football, and field hockey. The athletic department has been fortunate to have a great group of longtime coaches and administrators, so let's hear their stories from Nickerson Field. BU's Field.
I was working part-time here during undergrad, and the assistant facilities manager position became a real job after I got my master's, so I just kind of walked right into that and started assuming more professional responsibilities for the field.
Of course, by the time I got here, it was BU's Field. Nothing really, no other teams were playing here. We didn't have any other major events. It was all BU-sponsored events, sports events that we had here.
Every 8 years, starting with 1970, the field was replaced by a new version of AstroTurf. 8 years to the dot. 70, 78, 86, 94, and then in 2000 we went over to the field turf. But it was every 8 years, and by the 6th year of every cycle, you can really start feeling the wear and the complaints. Some of our fields had inlay, where instead of painting, it was in-sewed, and then one year we were painting Terrier football or something, and they used the wrong paint, so it was all sharp and Brillo, and everybody's uniforms got all messed up. It was a whole big deal.
Yeah, I love college football, and you know, during that time when we had football teams on Nickerson Field from Boston University, it was fun. And it was a group that really, you know, that's what I love about BU. The teams really support each other, and when we had football, those guys were at our games, and when they had games, we'd be out there supporting them, and there are just some tremendous athletes and some tremendous games out there that I remember seeing.
I'll never forget, we would play some night games here, and I'd be looking up at the dorms, and the students would be up there watching the game in Rich Claflin or Sleeper Hall, and we'd score a touchdown, and suddenly now all those lights would be flashing on and off, and you know, so you could see the kids were watching the game, but gosh, leave your room and come to the stadium. You know, just sit here and get the feel for it.
The thing I'll take to my grave, probably the greatest football game I've ever been around, was in November, December of '93. That was an undefeated season. And there was a lot of controversy then because football was being looked at very seriously as, is this going to stay here? And everybody knew it. So as the season wore on, they became more bonded because of that. And we had a really good team. There's at least 7 or 8 of the guys in the Hall of Fame now and more coming. So we go undefeated, and we're third in the nation, and we're just basically killing everybody. And we were playing Northern Iowa here, and we bid for that game, but we weren't sure if it would draw. We weren't sure if it would draw. It sold the place out. People were standing everywhere. It was a magical experience.
'93, the Ncaa playoff game against Northern Iowa. Kurt Warner was here with Northern Iowa.
Though he wasn't as known then, but he was still a great player, and they had a great halfback. And they were beating us up pretty good at the half. And then the halfback got hurt and was out of the game. So it was a close game right to the end. It goes into overtime. Northern Iowa has a short field goal to win the game, like a 20-yard field goal, and they hit the upright.
And we went into overtime in that game. And Zach Burwell, our running back, scored the winning touchdown, and there in the end zone was our hockey team. We had been skating earlier in the day, and Jack Parker had found out what was happening. He let the kids off early, and they all came up in their BU hockey sweats, came up, and they were in the end zone as Zach Burwell crossed the goal line to score the winning touchdown.
From a football standpoint, that was probably the greatest year. And the greatest game was that game against Northern Iowa. The excitement that it brought.
Nickerson Field was an amazing home field advantage in so many ways. The way the bleachers were originally set up on the tennis court side, and you're really right on top of the field. So the fans were right on top of the field, and whenever we attacked the dorms, that's where all of our fans were. Teams couldn't get the ball out. I mean, between the energy of the crowd and the energy of our press, it just created some really exciting hockey. And I really have to tribute the setup of Nickerson Field during our time when we were there, of creating a great place to watch a hockey match and a great home field advantage. The 85 team was really a breakout BUFA team for us. Really blue-collar kids, hard workers, very athletic, loved to play the game, and just created some outstanding hockey. I think Nickerson Field was one of the top hockey facilities at that time. A lot of people still had grass, very few people had AstroTurf, where today everybody has AstroTurf, everybody has water-based AstroTurf. Back then, a lot of teams were still playing on grass. UConn was playing on grass, UMass was playing on grass. So there were really very few outstanding turf fields. So we were fortunate enough, we got to host the first and second round of the Ncaa tournament. At that point in time, UMass and UNH were really two of the top teams in the country, just not in New England, two of the top teams in the country. And we knocked them both off, and it was an amazing weekend of hockey. The excitement that field can generate and the speed and the athleticism that field allowed you to play at really complemented the team that I had that year.
There's so many memories when you walk out to Nickerson, you know, back dating to the days when I first started here in the late 70s and early 80s.
I remember we had some terrific players, Francis and Benakuru, Ncaa Vidal. We had some terrific goalies at the time. We had some fabulous players here that were just terrific, very exciting.
The undefeated run was fun. It was a special year. We kind of had a new team, and we were opening up with Virginia. They just won the national championship the year before. You know, we played well. We were up, I believe, 2-0 at one time. Then we went up 3-1, and they pushed us at the end, but we hung on there, and it was a really marquee victory for us, and it kind of just got us in a run.
That was a very exciting time, and we had some great student athletes here at the time, and there was quite a buzz on campus with it. And it shows that soccer on a college level can be something that the university can grasp and enjoy, and I rally behind.
One of our biggest games ever was, I think, in the Ncaa tournament against Boston College. And Boston College was very good. They couldn't play at home because their field was the tailgating section for the football games. So that it wasn't really, at the time, a safe place to play. So we ended up getting the game at our place, even though they were a higher seed. They were up 2-0, I believe, up a man with 15 minutes to go, and Timmy Horton scored 3 goals in 15 minutes and single-handedly just kind of took the game over. And you could kind of see it happening. It was a lot of fun that day, especially it was Boston College and it was NCAA tournament and everything that was involved in it.
It's great when you see student athletes come back to see Neil because they all have such great respect for him, for what he's done here. And then our women's teams have shown that they can compete on that level.
Yes, we started at the beginning for the women's soccer program in 1995. We kicked off the first varsity season, and I remember very distinctly our first game on Nickerson against St. Joseph's of Maine. And we had a victory that day in our first game in the history of the program. So I also remember that I couldn't see the ball or the shins or the feet of the gal that was playing on the other side of the field for us because of the 14-inch crown on Nickerson Field. So from the bench, sitting down when the ball was on the far sideline, I learned very quickly on game day that you couldn't see the ball. Well, Christmas Day for us was 2000 when the Boston Breakers came to BU and asked if they could make an arrangement and lease the facility and put whatever it was, $750,000 into it to change AstroTurf to field turf, which is a much preferred soccer playing surface. It was starting to be difficult to schedule some high-ranked teams on AstroTurf because in the past, previously, historically, no one seemed to much care. But as the sport was growing, as the sophistication of the game in the U.S., the eliteness of the top programs on the women's side, it was going to start to get in our way. So by happen chance or coincidentally or maybe no coincidence, we actually hosted and won our first America East Championship the first year that we were playing on a field turf type surface. So That was pretty significant.
We also held a couple of national championships in women's lacrosse in '84 and then in 2006. And the one in 2006 produced the largest crowd at a championship in that sport, which was great.
I mean, winning last second against Georgetown in 2006 was pretty cool. Mary Beth Miller coming around that crease and scoring. First time we've ever beat Georgetown. We won with 2 seconds to go. That was awesome. You know, that whole year was a great year. Another, I think, a big year for us that I can go back to on and on. 2009, you know, having Sarah Dalton on the team and just seeing what she did in that year of scoring, you know, 5 goals against Vanderbilt when we were at home, and it was awesome. And then going and winning the America East here on our home field, hosting an Ncaa tournament game, again against UNH, and winning. And I think that was really cool. It's a neat feeling to have some big wins. You know, we've won probably since my time here, I think we've won about 4 conference titles on our field, and it's always neat to hoist the trophy up at home. We've hosted a couple NCAA games here, and I think that's a pretty cool thing to showcase that we were the best team in New England to be able to host.
Fortunate I didn't have to get into the scheduling. I didn't have to have a coach come into my office and say, well, okay, we have to practice from 7 to 9. And then it would compound it when football had some good seasons in the, you know, in the early to mid 80s. They made it to the playoffs, so now football had to get scheduled for after Thanksgiving, you know, to come in and schedule practice for Thanksgiving while field hockey had to be in. And so, you know, and then we had to figure in the murals in there.
It's a little bit different back then. We had a big book, and it was all in pencil, written in the book who was on and who wasn't on, and you had to go in and just look, you know, in the office and see who was on that day. Nothing was ever, you know, sent to you or anything like that. So, but everybody was really cooperative, and one team would come on, one team would come off, and it was just like clockwork. The field was never not used.
Sure. You know, we had the football, 2 soccers, a few hockey, but the expectations were a lot different because they knew we only had the one field, so they had to adjust to it. But they would, I remember there were nights when they'd be here till very late, but everybody understood it.
Yeah, I don't know why. I didn't think it was unusual at the time. We were training at 8 o'clock at night, 8 to 10. I don't think the student athletes wasn't a problem for them. They're pretty raring to go at 8 o'clock at night. It's just, and I was a little bit younger then, so maybe it wasn't so tough.
During that time when there were 4 teams out on Nickerson Field, you know, there'd be times I'd be driving home at 10 o'clock at night. You know, we'd be practicing 7 to 9 or. But you know, it all worked. We all shared the field. Football pretty much had the 3 to 5 slot. You know, they had the most guys to try to work their academic schedules around.
I think the good thing, and that's why here, when I was here, when we had football, everybody back then, I don't remember one football coach ever being a minute over there. When we used to come on after football, and boom, they were done at 4, we were on at 4, and it was always great. And it was like clockwork.
None of the coaches, you know, made it difficult to share, and Alan Weinberger was a master at putting the schedule together.
Sometimes they'd be practicing till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night on a Tuesday night, just practicing, and it was what it was because those no other field here.
It was pretty impressive. I mean, when it comes to the coaches, are really cooperative, and yeah.
You know, it just kind of speaks to the camaraderie of our department, and at the time, we just shared. You
know, Neil Roberts and the football staff and Nancy Feldman and us, you know, you make it work. It is what it is, and you just find a way to make it work. And but there were definitely some late nights getting home for sure, with some late practices. And you got to tribute the athletes for being flexible back then. I mean, sometimes you'd be practicing at 5 o'clock, sometimes you'd be practicing at 7 o'clock, sometimes you'd be practicing at 8 o'clock. And to be able to juggle your academics and your athletics, it wasn't easy. But they just made it work. You know, I don't remember anybody complaining. It is what it is, and you just make the best of it, and then we still won a lot of games doing it.
I know whenever recruits walk on that field, their eyes just light up. They see it, they just see the stands, the Boston University, they see the scoreboard, and they just get really excited to have the opportunity to play there. And so I know for us, I mean, it's a selling point recruiting-wise, which is great, but it just is something that every alumni talk about, you know, home on the Nick, can't wait to get home, can't wait to play on the Nick, and they say all these different things, and it's pretty cool. it's neat that that's one of the first places that any alum that comes back to BU, that's where they want to go.
So we've really taken a look, the administration has taken a look and say, okay, this is what we have. What can we do to keep it up to date, to keep it modern, to make sure it's safe for the athletes, make sure it's comfortable for the fans. So I give them a lot of credit for being able to maintain the integrity of the field.
Yeah, it is special. And looking at, every day running around in Nickerson and looking at the skyline of Boston, seeing the choppers overhead and the blimp going over with the signage on their way to Fenway Park, we're in the thick of it here. And we're in the thick of it historically with Boston sports and even currently with Boston sports. And we're kind of embedded. It's just another example of how much we're embedded in the Boston scene.